Good afternoon or morning for our West Coast folks. Welcome to today's National 8A Association webinar. The National 8A Association is a nonprofit with a mission to provide education and guidance for all aspiring, current, and graduate 8As. We're also proud to work with all types of small businesses, agencies, large primes, and industry professionals. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this webinar is being recorded and all presentation materials will be posted on our website. If you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to do so in the Q&A and we'll jump into those at the end. Now I would like to introduce you to today's speaker. We have Ross Robinson from Neo Systems. So please join me in welcoming our speakers as they dive into the changing landscape of government grant and contract procurement. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I'm Don. My name is Don Carnevale. I'm the marketing director at Neo Systems. We are always excited to be able to participate in the National 8A Association monthly webinar series. We've been supporting the 8A Association for many years, work with many organizations there. So again, we appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak today to this audience. So as you mentioned, the topic of this presentation is the changing landscape of government grant and contract procurement. We'll look at this through a few different lenses as we go through here. I would like to mention and introduce our featured speaker, Ross Robinson, who's a Vice President of Nonprofit Services at Neo Systems. Ross, great to see you again.
Nice to be here.
So this is a quick look at our agenda today, which we'll be covering. I won't read this verbatim, but as you can see here, these are some different ways that really capture the essence of how the landscape is changing around government grants and government contracts. And one theme that I think you will see throughout this, as Ross speaks to these different topics, is that there is obviously a lot of uncertainty around contracts, grants, funding agencies, but the right approach is to be proactive and not reactive. And I think Ross will touch on that as we go through each of these topics. But it's a very important takeaway from today is organizations should be more proactive in how they approach this. And we'll go into more detail on each of these areas.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I know that everybody on this call probably has been affected or knows somebody that's been affected by the change in administration and what's gone over the last couple of months. We're at a point now where I actually call it the Wild Wild West. We really don't have any idea on any given day what may happen and how things may change, and the rules are changing, by the hour, basically, these days. So what I hope to do is maybe give you some thoughts and guidance today on how I would recommend moving forward in this challenging environment. The application processes that you're using needs to use compelling narratives and focusing on the impact that your work will do, and that is in alignment with the government and their current goals. And so they may revamp some of the ways that you have done business in the past with them. Certainly, there are certain areas that are now no longer available for you, and you really need to promote how a grant or contract is going to help the current administration move its agenda forward.
Thanks, Ross. So the question I have, Ross, as we get into this, I think I went one too far. My apologies. There we go. So when it comes to promoting strengths, Ross, how can government contractors and nonprofit organizations really effectively showcase their organizational strengths to their funding agencies?
So I think there's a few ways that they can do that, Don. First of all, you can define your mission and goals. You really need to clearly articulate what your organization will achieve and what impacts it will have, and hopefully impact positively for this new administration that is now in power. You need to identify your target audience and understand who your programs work for, as well as how these programs will help address the needs that are in the marketplace in your target. Also, promote your strengths and resources. Highlight your organization's expertise, track record, your partnerships, and your staff.
Excellent. So when we talk about funding opportunities, Ross, what strategies would you recommend organizations use to help identify relevant funding opportunities, given that the current situation?
So I think first of all, research. I mean, I think you need to look hard for government agencies and corporations, foundations, if you're a nonprofit, that align with your mission and your target customers. I'd also analyze their funding criteria, understand their priorities, what their markets are, their programs, and what their requirements may be. And finally, develop a funding strategy. Create a master plan for your funders of what opportunities to pursue, how to approach each funder. It may be different for each one of them, and how will you measure success as you go down this road? What will be a success for you?
And you touched on this in your first comments today, Ross. This is around crafting compelling narratives, proposals, documentation. What do you see as the best approach that organizations can take in order to to write and to craft really compelling narratives and produce strong proposals?
So I really think you need to do a good job of describing your organization, what solutions you do offer, and what impacts you have had and what impacts you will have going forward, Don. And they also need to quantify your achievements and explain how your programs have been effective and impactful in the marketplace through past performance.
Great. And this topic, Ross, I know is something that when we spoke prior to today, this was something that you felt was very, very important around relationships. And how important is it to build the relationships with those funding agencies, and do you have any tips for going about that?
So enormously, enormously important. Once you've targeted the organization or government entity, after you've submitted your proposal, you need to continuously follow up with them. You need to stay engaged with your funders and be ready to answer questions and provide additional information and documentation to them. And the kind of people that I would be searching out would be project managers, project officers, grant specialists, technical monitors, and contract administrators. These are the people that are in the trenches every day that perhaps could give you valuable insight and help as you work with them on your proposal to secure funding. And then seek feedback. I would ask your funders, even if you win or lose the contract, for constructive criticism on your proposal, so that you could use that in the future to help craft even more compelling proposals for potential funders.
Excellent. That's great, Ross. Thanks so much for that insight. So that will do it for the main part of our presentation. When that was a lot of information in a short period of time, but we do have a few minutes now. If anyone has any questions, as I mentioned earlier, if you do have a question for Ross, please go ahead and enter that in the Q&A area here within the Zoom window, and we'll pause for just a few moments to allow you to enter any of those questions in.
So Don, while we have a minute, I think we skipped over talking a little bit about how to develop strong proposals, and I'd like to spend a minute, at least if that wasn't on the deck, I'd still like to talk about it a little bit. So since we have some time, if that's okay.
Certainly, Ross.
So As far as developing your proposals, I mean, one of the important things is always adhere to the guidelines and requirements of the funding's application process, um, and create realistic budgets. Prepare accurate financial projections and back up and justify those costs and projections in your proposals. And then also provide, where you can, data and metrics. Demonstrate how your program will be effective, what the impacts will be, and how you will review those.
Right. Thank you, Ross. So again, if anyone has any questions regarding what Ross has discussed today, we'll certainly take those and address those as they come in. So Ross, there is a question that's come in. I'll put it out there for you. Are there national institutions that are great for purchase order financing? Have any insight on that?
There are we talking about factors?
It does not specify on that.
I'm
So
not, I'm
maybe,
not, I'm not familiar with any, what I would call factors that work with purchase orders. Most of the people that I know of are working with receivables,
okay,
not
great.
purchase orders.
There is a comment here, Ross. I'd love for you to comment on this. Audience member has said that they have found that debriefs have been very beneficial with the contracting officer in the past. You have any thoughts on that?
So, I mean, I think that's one of the points I made, is that, developing those relationships so that you can speak honestly with the contractors and their representatives can really help you understand what may have gone right or wrong in that proposal and help you craft better proposals in the future.
Another question has come in, Ross. This person is finalizing a contract negotiation and is asking, should their company be concerned that the government agency keeps asserting that they are waiting on funding/PR?
I think everybody's in the same boat there. I mean, I think until they sign on the dotted line, I think all funding is has questions. It's just the nature of the market, very uncertain at this time.
Right, which kind of goes back to that initial theme, Russ, which is there's always sort of so much that you can control in the world, but things that you can control, being proactive and developing relationships
Right,
and
right. I mean, we're still living in an environment where people are losing funding, and so it's a very, very uncertain marketplace at this time.
any additional questions for Ross? We'll wait just another few moments. So another question has come in, Ross. As a minority-owned company, how does the new administration affect us?
I don't think it affects your status at all. I think you still have the advantages that you have being an 8A company. But once again, it's the thrust of your funding requests that this administration is going to look at, and making sure that they align with where they're going.
This next question, I'm not sure if this is for us, but not sure if you have any insight into this, Ross, and if you don't, that's fine. But this person is asking, what are the biggest questions or concerns that 8A companies are expressing at this time? I would imagine they're the same type of questions and concerns that any company doing business with the government is facing.
I think it is. I think the uncertainty and what's going to be funded and what's not affects everybody right now.
All right, last call for any questions, and then we will go ahead and. Oh, here's one last question that's come in. Will all contractors need to be registered on the GSA schedule going forward based on the last executive order?
I'm not familiar with that order. I've not heard anything to that effect, that everybody is going to have to be on the GSA schedule.
And there's a question about the slides being available. I believe that it was mentioned that the slide deck will be available on the National 8A Association website shortly after today's event. All right, well, looks like there are no further questions, so I will hand it back over to our host for today. Thank you all very much for attending and for your great questions. We certainly do appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity to present here today.
Awesome. Thank you to both Ross and Dawn. We really appreciate you taking the time today to speak on this very important topic that, I think everybody is hearing about, talking about, listening. So we really appreciate it. As Dawn mentioned, and as I mentioned in the beginning, the webinar recording and presentation will be posted on our website along with other past webinars by the end of the week. So if you'd like to reference or share with anybody, please feel free to direct them to our website. Thank you again for joining us today. This concludes today's webinar, and we hope to see you next month. Thank you.